Good morning. Welcome back to AM 560. The Answer. Amy Jacobson here I'm in for Dan and you're in for me, and you look lovely. Sean from Elmwood Park.
I think it's the yoga pants, ties everything together.
It's your active wear.
I'm not the only one in a size 8 this morning either, as many of them are on their way to school. That's always fun to watch.
Stop. No. Hey, do you know one school district did ban moms from wearing pajamas to drop off because a lot of women wear pajamas. I mean, ladies, get your act together. Seriously, there's some lazy days you throw on the winter coat, cover up the
there are no standards anymore. I got to watch you with no makeup. And then they can't, just make a left turn, for God's sakes. I really don't care what you got on. All right, let's go to my guy because I love him. I really do.
Okay, Sean from Elmwood Park is a huge fan of Ed Morrissey and basically hotair.com in general. Tell us about it.
I think it's a great site because, you know what, it has a fundamental belief system that it sticks to. And it's why I don't really watch. I had The Drudge as my screensaver, and now it's Hot Air, and it has been for a couple of years now.
Really? All right. Well, with that, let's welcome back to the program Ed Morrissey from hotair.com, editor-in-chief and chief bottle cooker and washer over there at hotair.com. Good morning, Mr. Morrissey. How are you?
I am doing fine, Amy. Thanks for having me on. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. Good morning.
So Vice President Mike Pence traveled to South Korea, but he did something a little different. He broke with his security plan to actually look at the border between North Korea and South Korea. And what happened after that?
Well, it was very interesting. He went out there on the right along the DMZ, right where the border is at. And obviously the American media and the South Korean media were there taking pictures. But the North Korean troops were also taking pictures. And you could see them there with their cameras snapping photos of Mike Pence as he came out there. And CNN explained this as saying, well, it's an intimidation tactic by North Korean troops. And as far as I'm concerned, if they're holding cameras and not guns, I'm not terribly intimidated. It's when they do the other that I start getting intimidated. I think that they were a little starstruck out there. That's what it looked like to me.
Wow. So was it a symbolic demonstration of the Trump administration's tough new approach when it comes to Kim Jong-un and nuclearizing their arsenal?
Yeah, I think absolutely, and I think that was the point that Mike Pence wanted to make, was that they are not afraid to go stand any place in the free world and declare that the time for strategic patience is over, and they are taking the Kim regime very, very seriously, and there's going to be serious repercussions for their continued nuclear weapons and missile program developments. And the Kim regime tried launching another missile just before that, and that one in particular failed. But I think having gone through all that, having Mike Pence go right to the line and say, we are not going to put up with this any longer, was most definitely a demonstration of a new policy in place. And that wasn't just aimed at North Korea, it was also aimed at China as well.
And Mike Pence got to see the last cameras made in the 50s as the North Koreans are pulling those. Here's the question I have for you, Ed. What's the money that North Korea spends on a school system? I'm guessing they don't even know how to launch the weapons. The last time a book was sold in North Korea was, 1947? I don't think I don't think they have the technology to compete with us. I think we can infiltrate they don't even have the internet, do they?
The military has the internet, and in fact, we know that because they hacked Sony Pictures, for instance, and released a whole lot of Sony's internal information. Caused Sony some great embarrassment a couple of years ago. The military gets their resources. There's no doubt about that, and China actually supplies a great deal of that, because China's approach to North Korea has been, until very recently, that economic engagement will produce moderation. That hasn't worked. It clearly has not worked. Instead, the North Koreans have used the economic cooperation and engagement to funnel resources into their nuclear weapons and missile programs. And the result of that, China is discovering, is that the U.S. is going to park the THAAD anti-missile system in South Korea, and they're going to start sending warships up to the Yellow Sea. Two developments that makes China extremely nervous. And I think they're realizing that their previous policies have backfired on them, and now they're looking for ways to tighten the vice a little bit on the Kim regime to get them to back off.
Well, if you live in North Korea and you're not part of the military and you're living, in just horrific conditions, what is life like for them? And is there any hope for an uprising, that there can be, an internal strife where they'd all, form a solidarity and try and overthrow Kim Jong-un?
Well, probably very little. From what people who have defected or escaped have told us, They're starving to death in North Korea. The military gets all the resources. The military gets all the priority. They are spending whatever money they have to make Pyongyang and a couple of other cities look nice. That was the Kim regime was pointing to this new neighborhood that they had just built in Pyongyang to say, obviously we're doing great. Things are wonderful here in North Korea, but that's where the money is going, and the peasantry, because there's no other real way to describe them in the country, are there barely subsiding on whatever they can get off the land, and they just don't have the resources to mount a coup. So if there's a coup to be had, it's going to come from military, which is the reason why the Kim family has been so aggressive in calling out potential rivals within the military.
Well, what's Korean for Potemkin Village? But listen, Ed, you write so many good articles. There's one I have to ask you about, and I know we only have a little bit of time. You wrote something I found fascinating, and that was that the pro-Trump group drops $3 million for House backers of the AHCA. And I have always been of the belief system that government has a lot invested in socialized medicine, that government corners the market in socialized medicine, that the profits are almost inconceivable of how many layers that they will then control of not just power over the citizens, but power over medical care. So I think that the Republicans have completely turned, and they're all in for socialized medicine. And in your article, doesn't it kind of substantiate my conclusion?
Well, I'm not sure what in the article would substantiate the Republicans went socialized medicine. I think what you're looking at with the AHCA is supposed to be a first step to dismantling Obamacare. And what I find interesting about that is the fact that the Trump administration really got behind the AHCA rather than pushing the repeal only and let the chips fall where they may approach, which is what some of, like Rand Paul wanted that, and some of the House Freedom Caucus wanted that.
Well, that's what I want as well. So I see them holding the reins of the Obamacare, simply keeping the footprint and moving around some pictures on the walls.
Well, part of that is because Donald Trump promised that there was going to be a transition. He promised this repeatedly during the campaign because he got challenged on, what happens when millions of people get cut loose from their coverage? He says, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We're going to have a plan in place to take care of that. So to some extent, the AHCA is a response to Donald Trump's campaign promises. And that's the reason why the White House is so foursquare behind that approach, is because they don't want to have they want to minimize the amount of media damage that's going to happen if you just take Obamacare and repeal it without anything else in its place. There's a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill who feel the same way. So that $3 million buy to protect 12 Republicans who backed the AHCA is sort of the carrot rather than the stick. They're helping people out who were their friends, but the organization behind this, which was formed by Trump campaign staffers, have made it pretty clear that eventually they're going to start applying the stick to people who don't get behind Donald Trump and the White House on the AHCA. And I think that that's a little bit of pressure for them coming back into Congress this week. So
the reality is government will always be in the position of power of our insurance from this day forward, and Obamacare will be shored up by Republicans. Is that right?
Well, I think
Sean's world.
Like, have you stopped beating your wife? Question, Sean. But look, I think that there is you can have a path to unfold Obamacare that goes through some steps, and Ryan and Trump have made it pretty clear that this was step one, and that there regulatory end with Tom Price at AHS is step two, and then there was going to be a step three, which is going to have to get Democratic support to completely to complete the repeal and replace of Obamacare. But as far as federal government being involved in health care, it's been anyway with Medicare and Medicaid. I think that you're going to find that even some Republicans want to see the federal government have some role in guaranteeing certain types of coverage. I don't like it either. It's not my thing. I would much prefer free markets and have it handled by the states. But I think you're going to get closer to that with the AHCA process than you're going to be able to find possible if you try to just do a flat repeal with nothing to back it up, because that just simply isn't going to pass Congress.
That voice belongs to Ed Morrissey, senior editor for hotair.com. Ed, when are we going to see a repeal and replacement of Obamacare? Do you see it happening before next year, possibly in fall?
It's got to happen. It's got to happen. It's got to happen sooner, not at all. I mean, you've got the omnibus bill that has to get passed to complete the FY 2017 budget. Then you've got the 2018 budget that comes almost immediately after that. They want to do tax reform this year. You can't do tax reform without this Obamacare repeal. So if it's going to happen at all, I'd say it's got to happen before, say, mid-June. Otherwise, they just run out of time.
Did you ever think you'd say the phrase, you got to get an omnibus bill passed, and we were talking about all Republicans? Do you see the collapse of the Republican Party here? I mean, are you listening to this? It's outrageous to me.
No, but there's a big dent in my desk right now where I've been hitting my forehead saying this. But unfortunately, the way continuing resolutions work is you have to have an omnibus bill to pass the rest of the budget. I mean, that's procedural. But let's hope that starting with the 2018 budget, we don't go back to that process again.
How many benefactors of infrastructure will also be contributors? You want to bet on that, Ed? I'll let you go. I'll take you off the hook there. Yeah.
A lot.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed Morrissey, senior editor for hotair.com. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Great being on with you guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.